I've never seen this last song.
What's that?
I think that's what it is.
We're going to cut right down the middle.
But so the saw will hit the log underneath?
Well, we put it up on those 2x.
That's enough?
Yeah. We can set the depth of the saw so it only cuts a ½ inch or so below that, so it doesn't get into the other one. So this here, we can set this at whatever we want. We're going to cut 6x, and so we'll just use my chalk line. The tip for chalk
I'm not
lines,
getting your way too much.
You point them down, the chalk settles and coats the string. Sometimes you'll snap a line and it'll be kind of spotty, you won't get chalk all the way around it. So that's a carpenter's trick there for keeping the whole thing coated in chalk. You at 6 there?
Yep. So we are. You don't have much of an edge right there. Looks good.
Measuring twice and cutting once is really important with this stuff because the timbers are so hard fought. I have spent hours and hours cutting these things and gotten lazy in the shop and not measured twice and cut 6 inches off too much of one, and you just can't go back to Home Depot and get another one. You have to go cut a tree down and take off the bark and the limbs, and so it's very heartbreaking. So you don't do that more than once.
Kind of punky at the end, ain't it?
Yeah, it's really soft.
Got the beetle kill to it.
Beetles.
Yeah.
That's actually probably why the fire got to the top of it.
Yeah, imagine so.
Are you some of those burn trees down on your place now?
Yeah, there's some of them, the ones that weren't gonna come back.
Board?
Yeah, when you're in
180 there.
acres.
The other side, there we go. The kerf on a chainsaw is pretty big. The kerf is the thickness of the cut. A bandsaw like you have, the kerf is very small, maybe a 1/16 of an inch, maybe less. These are closer to 3/16 to a quarter. So I'll put my saw on there, and I want to cut on the outside of the line because this is our piece that we're going to keep, and that comes out to always about 3/8. So I'll match it over here, and I'll just bring this over about 3/8 from my chalk line.
That's how much it cuts off with the saw
That's how much the
blade.
That's how much the chainsaw blade turns into sawdust. It's about a quarter inch.
Unless you want to do furniture and you want to use lumber. Yeah, lumber is, I like it. It works for it.
It cuts off a lot.
Again, take your time with your setup, and it'll really pay dividends when you start building with it. It's really frustrating to work with two timbers coming together, and one is 3/16 off one way and the other 3/16 off the other way. and pretty soon it gets to be very, very difficult to deal with. They're never the same off together. Make sure that your saw blade's going to be clear. If you cut through your cribbing, it's not the end of the world. So there it is. There's a 6x6. And I'll tell you, for me, there's very few things I found in life that are more satisfying than going and cutting down a tree with a crosscut saw and axe on your own property and dragging it over here and milling this and building something like that. It's one of the pleasures of life, for me anyway. Any guys have any questions? Pretty self-explanatory. On chain, one thing on chains are pretty expensive. If you're willing to make your own hoops from bulk chain, you can do it for about 50% of the cost. You can buy chain in 25-foot or 100-foot rolls. 25-foot of chain is, for most guys, will last you a long, long time, and you can buy that for about $100. And with just a grinder and a hammer and an anvil, you can make up your own whips and save a lot of money that way. What do you think?
Well, it's
11.
11. It's about 55 minutes.
Got a couple options. I sharpen and use crosscut saws, and the old crosscut saws are really interesting. I did bring a couple. If you guys would be interested in that, we could kind of go over that a little bit.
Yeah.
And also have the option of cutting this and showing them a joint maybe too.
We could do that too. We could do some timber framing, or we could do the crosscut saws, or we could probably do both. You guys want to see the saws?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Give me a hand.
Yeah.
That's why you, yeah, you step away. So I was interested, my son and I were girdling a tree because Cody and I were going to use a crosscut saw. And so my son is 9 and Cody's been taking him out in the woods, and he is far better with an axe than I am, which is in a hatchet too. Is kind of humiliating.
Yeah, you're doing a good start.
It's
Just the black part?
It comes
or?
naturally, genetically on.
Yeah.
Bred into you to do that.
Yeah, I guess so. Apparently.
Get underneath.
This thing?
No, the one in your left hand shows how to do that. Yeah,
I want to do that.
because this hatchet makes sense to us, and we've
How
seen
does
enough
this?
of it.
Yeah.
You know,
How
what
does
is
that?
Well, you got a sharp end there, and of course if the shoot
Oh,
is
it
a
goes
tree,
underneath
so you
the
can
Oh, around the tree.
get underneath it.
Cool.
Ah. I'll give it right back. Can I just
Firefighters
try
use
it
those.
just for a second?
Oh yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. Out of the way.
I wish Kyle was here.
Oh man.
You too, huh?
You have a little bit of resin buildup.
Yeah, it's just some oil.
Cody.
Cody, they would be best friends
Absolutely.
in a heartbeat. He is Mr. Woodsman.
Yes.
He started working in my furniture shop when he was 2 years old.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and
You weren't kidding about genetics, huh?
No. No.
and years of working in the shop, and then he started working in the woods and he was logging. And then he bought his own sawmill, and he got a woodmiser, and he just, it's just like, he knows how to do the stuff, and you don't really have to tell him.
No, it's
And like, how does
ingrained.
that happen? You know, he does stuff when he starts messing with his sawmill, and I've worked with since I was 15. I worked using equipment, and he gets on his sawmill, and his mind just does this thing. He cut a 33-foot can, an 8x14, on his mill that only cuts a 24-foot log.
Right.
And I'm just going,
How the heck
okay, I'm
does he
glad
do
you're
that?
figuring out, because if he, in 33 feet, when he's got this round plug on the end, if he's trying to, if he gets off a 16th up here, in 33 feet, it's this much.
Yeah.
You know, so you got to be right on the money. In 33 feet, he was off an 1/8 in the total length of the log.
That's a pro.
And I'm just like,
Yes.
okay, kid, I'm not doing that, you are. So
if you guys want to gather around, I'm going to give you a brief history of crosscut saws. It's very interesting, and why they're so special, and why they're irreplaceable. Crosscut saws were used up until about the late 50s and 60s for all logging, bucking and felling. And the very best crosscut saws ever produced were produced by 2 companies. It was the Simons Company produced the Royal Chinook line, and the Atkins produced the 51, 52, 53. And these saws are very sought after and very difficult to find, and they're irreplaceable because of a couple different things. The material that they're made out of we're not able to duplicate that today. The Forest Service still uses vintage saws, and they've tried every manufacturer to figure out a way to find new saws to use, but they can't. They've ordered some new saws